All right, welcome back. You're now in the second major piece of this course where you're going to learn how to transition from understanding the remaining path to actively managing that path and even influencing that path in your favor. So in this section, we're going to talk about several techniques you can use to manage and influence the process now that you understand it and that you've implemented the techniques, the questions, etc., from the previous pieces of this course. Now, the first part, the way you transition from understanding to actively managing is with what I call closing motion questions. Now, I wouldn't confuse these with closing techniques, right? You're not going to find any slick one-liners that are automatically going to get deals closed for you, but these are questions that set in motion a series of events and steps that start to push your deal along and gently nudge it so it gets a little bit closer to the finish line. Now, as you wrapped up the previous pieces of this course and you've understood the remaining steps and the people involved and how they're involved and the timeline between steps and the money situation, there are basically three potential situations you're going to find yourself in. Number one, you have no shot of closing the deal in this fiscal period. It's just not going to happen. You learn something that tells you you've got to move this deal from this forecast to next one. Number two, you have a shot at closing it on time, but it might be tight, right? There's uncertainty as to whether or not you're going to get it done. And that's probably going to be the majority of your deals, at least the majority of the deals that you're forecasting as you approach a quarter end or fiscal period end. And then number three, you have a very good shot and timing is looking good, right? No deal is riskless until the contract's signed and the money's in the bank, but more or less, it looks like you're going to get it done, and you just got to make sure you're marshaling it along to make sure that happens. So we're only going to cover two of those scenarios, because if you find yourself in the unfortunate situation of the first situation, which is you have no shot of closing it in this period, well, then the techniques in this course are not going to be applicable to that deal, right? You've got selling to do. You've got to manage the sales cycle. This course is about bringing deals in their final stretch across the line. So there are two situations we're going to handle. One is you've got a shot at closing it, but it might be tight. And the next one is you've got a very good shot, timing is looking good, and it's yours to lose. So each of these two situations has its own closing motion question. Okay, you're going to ask a different question to your buyer based on which of those two situations this particular deal falls within. And so here's what to do. As you've gone through the first techniques in this course and you've understood the remaining path, right, using some of the questions I taught you in the previous parts of this course, once you identify what deal it is in terms of, do you have a very good shot and it's looking good, or you have an okay shot and timing is tight, you're going to ask a corresponding question. So here's the first one. If timing is looking possible but tight, here's what you're going to ask. Can I ask you a question that you can stiff arm me on? What conditions would have to be true for us to move forward with an agreement by X date, September 30th, December 31st, whatever the case is? Now, notice I have some of the words here yellow highlighted. This is my own softening language. You're going to want to use softening language before you ask this question so it doesn't seem so harsh or forward, okay? It can feel a little bit much if you just jumped into what conditions would have to be true for us to move forward with an agreement, right? That can almost sound trite and impatient. And so these are words that I use. You can use your own softening statement, but I like to say something like, hey, can I ask you a question that you can kick me in the teeth on if I'm overstepping my boundaries? What conditions would have to be true for us to move forward with an agreement by X date? Okay, so that's the question to ask if timing is looking tight, right? There's a lot of uncertainty as to whether or not you're going to be able to get it done this period. Now, if timing is looking very good, right, it seems obvious that the deal is going to get done, you're going to ask a different question. Okay, so instead of the first one, you're going to ask, sounds like we're poised to move forward within X time frame, right? Before September 30th, whatever. what would derail us from getting this done by then? Okay, so that is the question that's relevant if timing is looking very good. And you'll notice that the tone of each of these questions mirrors the deal's situation. Okay, so over here on the left, you're almost acknowledging with your words that timing is tight, but you're also communicating a desire to get it done tactfully with social intelligence. And so you're asking what conditions would have to be true. Now, if you ask that same question on the situation on the right, like let's say timing looked really good and you ask that question, it would seem bizarre. Your buyer would be like, well, I mean, seems like that's going to happen. So I'm kind of perplexed by the question. So instead you ask, sounds like we're slated to move forward on the time horizon we're both working toward. What would derail that from happening, right? Very different tone of question, but both of these are questions that set in motion the series of events that you've uncovered. Now, the key to this is silence yourself. Ask the question. Don't tack on a bunch of extra words or sentences at the end of each of those questions. Hit mute if you have to, but pause for longer than is comfortable and let your customer fill the silence with the information you're going to need to either get the deal done or avoid getting the deal derailed based on which situation you find yourself in. So asking one of these two questions is your starting point when it comes to making a transition from understanding the path to managing and influencing the path in your favor.